Then they opened the I guess the curtains, and when the curtains opened, Billy Ray Irick was already laid on the gurney and had the IVs in his arm. He had on a white cotton outfit with black socks and had several straps that were across his body, one that was going over his shoulders, a couple that were going over his chest, right around his stomach area, over his legs and his feet. His hands were taped down to the table, everything that you were expecting to see in this execution.
As we've said, the curtain came up at roughly 7:26. Mr. Irick was asked if he wanted to say anything. When he said no and paused, my recollection is that at that point, the warden put his hand over his face. We've been told that that was a signal to start. I'm not sure if that's what it is. At that moment, then Mr. Irick gave his final statement.
He said, "I just want to say I'm really sorry. That's it." I noticed his eyes closed
His eyes closed almost immediately after the final statement. I would say that he exhibited consistent rhythmic snoring.
And the only other thing I would reiterate is that at 7:36, as some people have described, he appeared to kind of jolt and cough and maybe sort of gasp or choke a bit. He was moving his head slightly. And after that, from that point on, he was still and didn't appear to be breathing.
One thing I wanted to mention was that I could see from where I was sitting the space where the family members of Paula Dyer, the victim in this case, were. I couldn't tell you who they are, but I suspect that one of the young men was a brother of hers. He leaned up close to the glass. He bit his nail a little bit, was very nervous, but I didn't see any tears. I saw a woman, more of a profile, and I don't know if that was her mother or someone else, but she leaned in really close as he took his last breaths. I could not see any real emotion. And then after he quit breathing, I noticed the gentleman, the one I suspect was the brother, he just kind of leaned back and slumped down a little bit. So I wanted to give you that perspective on what Paula Dyer's family went through.
If you want, I can read you a quote that Gene Shiles, the attorney for Mr. Irick, gave. He gave this to us in one of the waiting rooms before we entered the execution chamber. He said, quote, "I never thought for one moment that it would come to this. I never did." He also said, quote, "I thought somebody would actually look at the facts. I was wrong." In reference to the facts, he was referring to the statements that he and advocates have made regarding Mr. Irick's mental illness. Mr. Irick and his attorneys have made those statements in numerous legal proceedings. Mr. Irick's legal team has held that those statements were never considered during court hearings. Legitimately considered. The governor and others did not agree.
Our sheriff, Jimmy J.J. Jones, was in the room with us and came here to see this. And I asked him after the fact about that, and he said that he said, "I'm here first and foremost for the victim, Paula Dyer, and for the citizens of Knox County, the same citizens that convicted him and sentenced him to death."